Okay, so just leaving Sedbury lay-by Scotch Corner. We've just had some brekkie, bit of a late breakfast, but bacon butty and a coffee and a hot chocolate, and we're on our way again. So we're heading up to the Lake District today for a couple of days away up to the Lake District. Got some nice things planned, quite a packed few days actually, so looking forward to that. So we've just done an hour and a half up to Scotch Corner to have a little break. We got a little bit wet on the way, but we're alright. It seems to be a bit brighter now, so fingers crossed we'll be dry all the way up to the lakes. So we're going to go across the Pennines, is that right, Johnny?
The Pennines, yes.
Yeah, so A66 across the Pennines, and Johnny's just going to talk a little bit about the bike and why we're nearly not on it. We nearly had to come in the car. So we're on our way, so I'm going to let him do that.
So this is the story of the bike ownership so far. When we collected the bike, we're very happy with it. We took it out for a few rides, and everything was performing as you'd expect. And we were looking forward to many years of legendary Honda Goldwing reliability. Didn't quite work out that way in the first few weeks. We planned, I think it was our first overnight visit away, just down to from Nottinghamshire to Norfolk, just to visit family for a day or two. I got the bike out of the garage in the morning, drove it onto the front of the house, the driveway, switched it off, went back inside, got a little luggage and got a gear on, loaded the bike up, went to start the bike to ride off, and there was just no power left in the bike. I pressed the starter switch, just nothing happened. Just not a solenoid click, not a whiz or a whir or anything. We spent some time trying to figure out what was the problem, but in the end we just we need to get going. We've got to get down to Norfolk, so we transferred all the gear into the car and we drove down there instead. So on return, I sort of got to thinking about it and think, well, it has all the hallmarks of just a battery dying on this, and potentially the battery was 7 years old. Don't know exactly how old it is, but potentially it could be 7 years old. And I thought, well, fair enough. It may well have just died after 7 years. So I purchased a new battery, and when that arrived, I fitted it and went to start the bike, and it just started. First flick of the button, everything was great. Oh, I should mention, by the way, the batteries are I always keep the batteries on an optimizer, battery conditioner all the time anyway. So the previous battery had been in the garage on a conditioner. So I fitted the new battery. Everything was fine. Carried on using the bike without any problems, and we planned a holiday, a sort of 4 days riding in Scotland. And a couple of days before we were due to leave, I went out one evening to the garage to load the routes onto the bike. So I plugged the SD card into the holder in the boot. Came round to the front, turned the ignition on, and there was a great big pop from somewhere down the front of the bike. I couldn't kind of quite place where it came from, but a big loud pop, and again all the power had gone. The dash lights weren't illuminating, the headlights were sort of glowing very, very faintly, or very, very dim, again no hint of movement from the starter motor or anything. So went back indoors and had a beer and slept on it for the night, and then the following day started investigating. I tested the first of all the output from the alternator, which was showing oh sorry, beg your pardon, went out the next morning. The bike had been on the optimizer all night and it started. So I thought, okay, let's test a few things. I tested the alternator, and that was putting out 14 amps, so good, you know, as it should be. A neighbour is a car mechanic, and he lent me a load tester, so I tested this new battery I'd put on, and that was fine. I also tested the old battery, which I hadn't yet got around to disposing of, and that was also fine. It was holding its charge, and the load tester showed it was functioning fine too. So there's lots of head scratching and lots of bewilderment all round, and we just didn't know what to make of it. And we decided in the end, oh, what the heck, we'll take a chance, and we'll just head off to Scotland. We did buy ourselves a little booster pack, a little power pack, just in case we got stuck in the middle of nowhere with no electricity. So anyway, we headed off to Scotland. Had 1,000 and something miles all around Scotland over 4 days. The bike performed flawlessly. Started every time we needed it to, and no problems with it at all. Got us back home, and we had a really wonderful few days in Scotland. And then that was the other thing. When the bike was playing up, a couple of times it got stuck in reverse gear until I could get sort of power into it, and then I could get it out of reverse gear again. But there was just no way I could get it out of reverse gear without power, and I couldn't even move the bike by disengaging the clutch and trying to push the bike with the clutch in. I don't know if that's normal for Goldwings or not, but it was happening. Anyway, we got back from Scotland, and again everything was fine for a while, and then a couple of weeks ago we just wanted to go out for a Sunday ride around the Peak District, and exactly the same thing happened. We got the bike out of the garage, moved it out of the garage, went inside, got a gear on, came back to the bike, and there was just nothing left in the battery, and it wouldn't, nothing would function. Started it with the booster pack on the jump leads, and we just went out for a ride. Rode for about an hour or so, stopped for lunch, got back on the bike, it started, and we rode the afternoon, got back home without any problems. Reversed the bike up onto the driveway, switched it off, went indoors, got a sponge and a bucket of water to wash all the dead bugs off the front of it. Did that, and then went to start it to put it in the garage. Now it started fine, but as I was reversing it in, I got maybe 10 feet, and the bike just died on me. Restarted it. It started, but ran only for a few seconds. So we manhandled the bike back into the garage, and noticed that the fault indicator light was flashing, code 13. So I went indoors, had a look at the fault code crib sheet thing, and could see that fault 13 is number 2 injector. So I then investigated how easy it is to look at number 2 injector, and of course it's not easy at all. Everything has to come apart, and I thought, this is beyond me, because if I get everything apart, I've only got a normal sized garage, so I've got nowhere to put everything once I take it all off. It'll take me a month of Sundays to take apart anyway. And then when I do get down to the injector, how do I test it, and how do I know if it's something else that's just that's at fault, but just pointing at fuel injector number 2? So we took the decision to take the bike down to Virtue Honda in Grantham, which are one of just 14 Goldwing centres in the UK. So I booked it into there. Had to get some transport to take us down there, which was a good price. I mean, it was a fair price, but money we didn't really want to be spending. Got the bike down to Virtue Honda, and left it in their hands. They contacted us a couple of days later and said that it was indeed pointing to number 2 fuel injector, but also that the battery, so this is the new battery I'd bought, wasn't holding any power, and was duff. And they said, would you like, we need to buy a new battery, we don't have any in stock, we need to buy a new battery. And I thought, well, actually I have one in the garage, which is the battery that was on the bike when we bought it, and it appears to be okay. How about that I bring that down to you and you try that one first? So that's what I did. I just went down by car, gave them the original battery, and came back home. They then called back and said, yeah, that battery is fine. So the original battery that I had assumed was faulty is in fact fine. The replacement battery, the new battery, is not working. So they ordered a new fuel injector, and a couple of days later that arrived, and they fitted it, and then told us that that what seems to have happened is that the fuel injector had been faulty, and when it failed, it had sent a surge of electricity or something back up the line to the ECU and had fried the ECU. So we needed a new ECU. Oh, what a lovely view that is over there, by the way. I looked around for a second-hand ECU and couldn't find one, so Virtu Honda ordered a new one, which arrived a couple of days later. Oh, and then I got a phone call saying, the new ECUs no longer work with the original keys, so we're going to need 2 new keys for the bike as well. They said, but we'll incorporate that in the price of the ECU. So they had to go and order 2 new keys. And whilst the bike was being stripped down, I did say to them that could they check the air filter, because this bike has somewhat a sketchy service history, and I wasn't sure when and how the bike had been serviced. So took the opportunity while it was still in bits just to have the air filter changed, and got a phone call from Virtu Honda saying, yeah, this air filter has seen much better days, we would recommend it being changed. So they changed that for whilst the bike was all stripped down. Anyway, a few days passed while they were putting everything back together and testing it, and they were trying to figure out what this original fault was about, the power just being dumped from the battery. And they said they'd been over at the fine-tooth comb. They've tested the loom, because it sort of indicated to them that it could possibly be a break in the loom somewhere. So they tested it all and couldn't find anything wrong with it. They took it apart and put it back together and tested everything, and just couldn't find any reason why the bike had been just dumping its power. And then eventually I got a phone call from them saying, well, it's all back together, we've taken it out on a couple of test rides, everything seems to be fine, would you like to come and collect it? So we drove down there last Saturday, just in time for this little getaway, and spoke to the team at Virtu Honda, who, it has to be said, are exceptional. I couldn't be happier with the way they have dealt with us. Their communication has been first rate. Every step of the way they've called us up and let us know exactly what's going on and what the options are and what the likely costs would be. They've been outstanding, Virtu Honda. And so we went down there last Saturday, and we spoke to Lee, one of the service team, and John, who is the Goldwing technician. And John explained how he'd tested things and exchanged replaced the number 2 fuel injector, and he said it's the first time he's ever had to replace a fuel injector on any series of Honda. He's a middle-aged gentleman, so he's not new to the job, It seems he's got a lot of experience working with Hondas and has never had to replace a fuel injector on one, and was of the opinion that it was just sheer bad luck that ours failed, and bad luck that it took out the ECU at the same time. And he confirmed that the original air filter, in his words, was really cruddy and needed changing. So anyway, we handed over a good chunk of money, 1,850 something pounds, which was less than it could have been. They were really good, and they did what they could to keep the costs as I was going to say as painless as possible, but it's not. It's painful, but they made the cost less painful than they might otherwise have been. They've looked after us extremely well, it has to be said, Vertu Honda. And then so we just jumped on the bike, or I just jumped on the bike. Sarah was in the car, and rode home. And from the first few yards, literally driving out of the car park at Grantham, the bike felt different. It just felt smoother. I don't know, it just felt more refined. If the throttle response was better, everything about it. I don't know if this is a fuel injector issue or an ECU issue or a air filter issue, but whatever they've done down there, they have improved the bike immeasurably. It feels an entirely different bike now, even down to my gear shifts are smoother, and I think it's because it's coming on and off throttle better than it was before, or it's just breathing better or something. But it was it is a big improvement over what it was before, and I was happy with it how it was before, but I didn't have anything to compare it to, because this is the only Goldwing I've ridden, so I don't know whether it was performing well or not. It felt really good before. It just feels so much better now. There we are. We managed to get the bike back in time for this 3-day getaway. We haven't had to pack the car up and come by car this time, and so far, halfway through the first leg of the journey from home to Keswick, the bike is it feels absolutely fantastic. So that's the story of our Goldwing woes so far. Hopefully that's the end of the Goldwing woes. But if you know, if you've got any comments about what we've been through, if you're a long time Goldwing owner and have some experiences to share, please do let us know in the comments. We would love to hear the opinions or advice from others. So we look forward to reading those, hopefully.
So that's the sorry tale of fuel injector number 2, folks. But it's all fixed, and we're going to go away and forget about it and have a lovely few days in the Lake District. So do look out for that video, because that's coming up next, and we'll see you next time.